I witnessed your little altercation, so I was like, okay, yeah, probably gonna be a few minutes before they get in here.
Yeah. Alrighty.
No worries.
Somewhere. I'm also whispering, so I will go to sleep. How are you both doing? And are y'all alright
Doing
if
well.
Mama Willow and Seraph Star join the call?
Yes, I
I'll
am
just
perfectly
little
fine with
baby.
that. Natty here is my little child, so we
Oh,
will be good for
yay.
group limits. Alrighty, if you actually, since you guys are already in a group, I assume, you guys can actually just go ahead and send me a group invite, and I will add Natty.
Oh?
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll invite my child.
Mama, invite me. Mother.
Perfect. Alrighty. Full crash, EO one-on-one. Wild. That's always rare. It's always nice though.
Yeah, should make for a nice, good session.
And we are on the more populated server as well, so we'll get a chance to practice some interactions. Alrighty, so I suppose I'll introduce myself to you first before we go over the profile.
Oh my god, a little tiny baby.
Literally microscopic. So this is your stepkid. We'll say for the sake of this one-on-one that this is your child, because the likelihood of me, joining another male while I have a calf is highly unlikely. But it's a one-on-one, so we're gonna make do with what we have.
We'll roll with it. We'll roll with it for the sake of the one.
Yeah. And I'll go over this as we go over the profile, but female EOs, right, they group with the male. They travel to the male's territory when they are actively looking to nest, right? So once I have my baby, my goal's been accomplished. So if my male dies or, logs off for whatever reason, the likelihood of me joining another male is very, very slim. But we're just gonna make do with my little nugget here.
Okay, and so we are allowed to claim like this entire zone, right?
You can claim
about it.
You can claim as much territory as you can maintain. So if you can follow that aloe from one end of Savannah to the other, you can do it. The way I like to talk about territory and your ability to maintain it is think about when you're doing your patrols, right? So if you're doing a patrol from point A to point B, let's say if you start at the bridge to the south of us and sorry, if you start at the bridge to the south of us and go west and circle around the entire Savannah Island, how many interactions do you have during that patrol? So from point A to point B, as you're patrolling the region and making sure that it's safe, if you are encountering an aloe, a dasp, a rex, pick no trios, multiple times throughout your full patrol, and you are having an interaction with them or an altercation with them each time you interact with something or meet something during that patrol, then your territory might be too big for you to maintain, right? So if you're going from point A to point B and you have to fight 5 allos every time you do your patrol, that's very exhausting and very risky, right? So if you're encountering that many things during your territory patrol, then it might be time to pull back your borders, right? Maybe that's too big for you to maintain.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of how I like to look at it. But if you are, doing your full patrol and you encounter one thing in the morning and then you do your evening patrol and you don't encounter anything, that's pretty good, right? That's pretty safe. So it can be as big as you can maintain, and basically my advice is just look at what you're encountering when you're doing those patrols, and if it's too much, then might be time for you to pull back that territory border. For something like an EO, I think Savannah Grassland is a perfect size territory.
Okay.
I think that's very manageable, so long as, of course, it doesn't turn into a hotspot, right?
Yeah.
And then that, again, you're going to look at how many things am I encountering while I'm patrolling, right? So then you might have to only claim like half of Savannah or something. But generally, I think that's a good size to start with and then see how it goes. Absolutely. Alrighty. So we've covered territory.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Other than that, is this your first one-on-one or have you taken any before?
I've taken 2 Amargo ones before.
Okay. Okay. Have you taken a beginner one-on-one previously?
This is my first beginner.
No? Okay. So a beginner one-on-one, as you probably can guess, is going to cover everything. We're going to go from the beginning of the profile, from the tags and group limits, all the way down to courting and reproduction. And we are going to basically cover as much as we can, and I'll try to elaborate on certain aspects of the profile, and I'll take breaks for you to ask questions as well. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of me talking and a lot of discussing different behaviors and whatnot. So if you are comfy with that, I can begin with our tags.
Let's do this.
Perfect. So, Eotriceratops. Pretty cool dino. The name meaning Dawn Three-Horn Face, often shortened to Eotrike or simply Eo. We are herbivores. We like salad. We are a huge, tasty, crunchy salad. Exactly.
Yeah.
We are a huge class dinosaur. So we are the largest class within Walking with Dinosaurs definitions. So, we're pretty hefty. We know our size. We are going to be aware of how big we are and how what our limits are in terms of, what we can push around or intimidate with that size, right? So because we are so big, we're not going to be bothered by any small creatures for the most part, unless they prove to like generally be annoying. And if they do, then we know how big we are and we know we can easily intimidate them, right? So we know how big we are and we know how we can use that to our advantage.
Mm-hmm.
We are diurnal, so we are active during the daytime, meaning our patrols as a territorial male, your patrols are going to be primarily done during the day. We are going to be doing our migrations as nomadic females during the day. Any courting or bullfights that occur will happen during the day. And during the night is when we start to slow down. So as the sun sets, a territorial male will probably do their last patrol for the day before finding somewhere to settle in for the night. And we will slow down, get ready to rest and recuperate our energy for the next day. Now, during the night, if you are, of course, beginning to die of dehydration or starve to death, that doesn't mean you can't get up and, go get the things you need to survive. But generally, you're going to be, slower about it. So sometimes you'll see actors, if they wake up in the night for a drink of water, they'll maybe use their Z-walk just to be slower, more groggy. And when you are walking around in that moment, maybe you could, take that moment to act out being less perceptive of your surroundings because you're still in that hazy sleep mode. So you may not pick up on, all the sounds or smells around you. Less aware because you're so tired.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely to go over some acting tips too while you're going over the profile.
Yeah,
sense.
no
Thank you.
worries. If I generally try and like, speak about the tag and how you can, actually use it because I can tell you what diurnal means, which is, we're active in the daytime and we sleep at night. But how can you actually put that into practice? So I do try and cover that as we go through things. Absolutely. Our next tag is polygamous. So the definition of polygamous per Walking with Dinosaurs means that you can have multiple mates within a season. Now, this will depend on the profile in question. Some profiles will allow females to have multiple mates per season, whereas other profiles will allow males to have multiple mates per season. So in the case of Eotrike, it means the male can have multiple mates. So he is not limited by a nesting timer. He can have as many ladies that are in his crash, and the females are going to be the ones with a nesting timer, and they can only take one mate. Okay. We are aloof, so we only really care about other eotrikes. Okay. We aren't a social species, so our tolerance for other species in our personal space is pretty low. We enjoy the company of our own kind and can be pretty quick to irritate if something else overstays its welcome. Males are territorial, which we discussed already. So these males, right, they will set up a territory, often in a very open area, like savanna is an excellent example, because we are so huge, right? We can often experience difficulty maneuvering in small spaces or tight spaces. So a wide open area is an ideal territory for a male, and he sets up that territory somewhere that's also going to have plenty of resources, and his goal is to attract females so that he can, potentially woo them and pass on his genetic line, right?
Mm-hmm.
The females, on the other hand, are nomadic, so they don't really have any ties to an area. They will freely move throughout the map and, explore, wander. They don't defend an area necessarily. That is until they actually find a male on their travels. So when a female eotrike is looking to nest, and we'll go over this as we get through the profile, it's written body itself, but when they are looking to nest is really the only time they settle down. So they'll find a male, scope out his territory, and see if he's got a good home, a good place with plenty of resources that is safe, and it's somewhere that she feels comfortable raising offspring. That's really the only time she's going to settle down. And of course, we are belligerent. So belligerent meaning that we are not afraid to make the first move if necessary. If we feel threatened, we generally are going to be very angry herbivores. We aren't afraid to fight if we have to. We also, for generally the belligerent tag, of course, can only defend in pairs. So a belligerent species can defend one other individual regardless of body length. Now, for Eotrike specifically, they actually have a note in their profile that actually restricts them a little bit more in terms of defense, which I'll go over. But generally, a belligerent species will only defend in pairs, okay? Our group limit is called a crash, and it consists of 1 adult male, 3 adult females, and unlimited offspring. Our dimorphism states that males are more colorful with flashy crests. So you aren't limited necessarily to having the color on your crest. The skull skin is an excellent example of the dimorphism for males. You've got a bright white head that's very, very flashy, but your sides are bright red. So you aren't limited to your crest necessarily, as long as you've got some color somewhere and are generally flashy on your head.
Oh, okay, cool.
Willow, your crest is pushing the limits there, my friend.
Yeah.
But, that's totally fine to experiment with. I think, looking at you from a distance, my first thought would be, okay, maybe that's a male, but on further inspection, I would, start to be a little bit more confused because it's not the flashiest crest, but there is color there, right? So you have some color and you've got some patterns and details on the crest. So it can cause some confusion, but that's where you're going to rely on your body language. Okay? So when you are encountering another male, if he interprets you as I'm sorry, this baby's little legs are moving so fast. If
So
you
cute.
are if you're encountering a male and he at first interprets you as another male and he attempts to challenge you, you would use your body language in that moment to confirm with him that, you know, you're not a threat to his territory, you're not looking to challenge him. So you can rely on body language in that regard. That doesn't mean necessarily that he has to accept you either. If he, you know, feels that, yeah, you can 2-call, absolutely. You know, so you're going to be using your body language to make sure that he is aware that you are not here to take his territory and that you're interested in nesting. That being said, as I was saying, he doesn't necessarily have to accept you regardless. Like if you're not following dimorphism and he, you know, maybe might view you as an unattractive mate, he wouldn't have to accept you into his territory. But he can. You know, if you're very clear with your body language and he's not as picky as say another male, he can accept you into the crash.
Mm-hmm. Prometheus literally never saw another bull before until he was adult and met all of his ladies. Didn't even encounter a bull until he came here.
He's got a lot to learn.
Yeah, he learned very quickly though,
Good.
not to let himself get too injured during bullfights.
Yes, that's going to be a very big thing that we'll talk about. Be aware of your health at all times. Be aware of your surroundings. Know when to call it quits.
He actually kind of just inherited Savannah because the other bull immediately got eaten by a Rex afterwards.
Oh, classic.
Yeah. I was like,
My
oh, no.
gosh. Alrighty. So that was our dimorphism there. We heard with nothing. So again, that falls into our aloof tag. We are going to be very quick to irritate if something overstates its welcome in our personal space. So even a Campto can quickly become a nuisance. Yeah, absolutely. What's your question, Willow? Yeah, absolutely. We'll cover that when we get to courting and reproduction, but females are not obligated to pick necessarily the winner of a bullfight, especially if he, you know, pushes himself to near death and exhibits risky or reckless behavior. Because the reason that these females are going to be picking a bull is because they're looking for a bull to nest with. So they want a territory that is safe and well maintained. And if this male is constantly pushing himself to the brink of death, then he's not going to be able to defend the territory, and he's not going to be able to provide a safe area to raise offspring. Oh, I realize now this is Sereth's question, not Willow's. Oopsies. You guys got chat moving super quick. So it can, Sereth, it can go for other dinos, but it is actually specifically stated in the Eotrike profile, so it's an encouraged behavior for female Eos to not pick reckless or stupid males. So your Amarga, for example, you know, can view a male who goes too far in, say, the Amarga bullfight. If, you know, he's putting himself to near death, that can still be unattractive. But with Eos specifically, it's directly stated in the profile, so we are encouraged to not pick these reckless men to be our husbands. And Willow's question here, if a Rex comes after one of the female's kids, gets tried by a Rex, Mama didn't take any damage, but Rex for sure. If Rex 2 calls and we are still hitting to kill distance, do we kill or back off? Okay, so this is going to be a question about the rules. So I'll get the rules pulled up really quick so I can actually discuss them here. So for belligerent species, I believe, and defensive. Yes. So this is going to be Combat Rule 2. It states that all dinosaurs are allowed to react with self-defense. Persistently stalking or displaying threatening behavior permits belligerent, defensive, and skittish herbivores to attack their pursuers after a 3 call. So even if that hunt hasn't officially started, but they're showing threatening behavior, you may 3 call and attack. 2 calls, on the other hand, will end a hunt against herbivores for carnivores. So if a carnivore initiates a hunt against you and 2 calls to forfeit, that officially ends the hunt. However, this 2 call does not protect carnivores if they cannot adequately get away in time from their target. Defensive and belligerent herbivores, so belligerent eotrikes, may continue to attack their hunters until the hunter can get away. Getting away includes losing line of sight for longer than 10 seconds or being unreachable for longer than 10 seconds. So if we are here in Savannah, it's going to be very difficult for a Rex to escape line of sight because it's so open. But if he is unreachable for 10 seconds or more, then he has effectively gotten away. On the other hand, if we're in somewhere like the dark woods and you lose line of sight for 10 seconds, you no longer can pursue him because he has gotten away. And yes, Sarath has a point that this rule specifically right now is under review by staff. Mm-hmm. So currently, the rule as written is that, and that is what we are expected to follow. But it may change in the future as staff are required to make adjustments, as some people, I think, are more bloodthirsty than others.
Yeah.
So it very well could change in the near future. Oh my god, this little baby. Alrighty. Our nesting limit here states that in the wet season, a female may have 2 eggs every 2 hours. In the dry season, we may have 2 eggs every 3 hours. So it's the same number of eggs regardless of the season, but your nesting timer itself will extend in the dry season. Now, the requirements for you to nest again, per the nesting rules, not only does your nesting timer itself need to be completed, but your offspring also need to have either logged off, died in some tragic accident, or reached subadult. So if 2 hours have passed since your nesting, but you still have a late adolescent calf with you, you still cannot nest. That calf has to reach subadult, or log off, or die.
Mm-hmm.
And our last little thing here in this beginning section is the notes that are specific to Eotrike. So, subadult or adult, Eotrikes can only protect other sub/adults against a Tyrannosaurus pair. So, if we are hunted by a Tyrannosaurus pair, then we will follow our belligerent tag rules and defend in a pair. Otherwise, if we are hunted, we are on our own.
Mm-hmm.
So when that occurs, if poor Willow is attacked up there and it's not a Tyrannosaurus pair, then the rest of us should make an active attempt to leave line of sight. Okay? Oftentimes you'll see Eotrikes linger nearby and, stand their ground and, 3 call and just be angry. And that can potentially lead to loopholing because although you aren't, directly defending that other EO, you are somewhat benefiting them just by being in the area. So when an EO is singled out, you should make an active attempt to flee the area and leave line of sight of the hunt, okay? And that's a general rule for all herbivores. Oh, Natty, I hope you don't die up here. That's a general rule for all herbivores, is that you should make an active attempt to leave line of sight of hunts if you are not the intended target. Okay?
Now, being EOs,
Mm-hmm.
Would I necessarily be worried about recalling? Warn y'all about something.
You can, absolutely. If there's something nearby that you have, spotted that's stalking someone in your crash, but you can't get there in time to initiate a territory challenge, you could forecall to alarm them. Because at that point, there's not going to be anything that you can do because you won't get there in time, right? So it's up to you and your male's personality if he wants to forecall to alert them or if he wants to just be like, I wonder what's going to happen, and just kind of let them deal with it on their own. But generally, like, your goal is going to be maintaining your territory, right? So you might not be able to get there in time to initiate a territory challenge and get that thing or whatever the threat is out of the area. So you might at least have the courtesy to warn the ladies so that they can have a chance maybe on their own to move away and give you time to get there and initiate a territory challenge before a hunt can start, right? Because if they make an effort to move away, then that can increase your time to get to the area and do what you need to do as the man. There is also a note here as well that states that only males may defend in a territory fight. So if a territory challenge is engaged, so again, like we have this threat approaching, it wants to hunt a female perhaps, but before it can initiate the hunt, the male issues a territory challenge. That is the responsibility of the male to push that threat out.
Okay.
Only one female may protect a bush. So for females, I generally wouldn't recommend, running across an area to protect a bush that you're not actively eating from, because that is a little bit too territorial for what a female should be. But if you are actively eating from a bush or resting nearby, and that is your primary food source, you may issue a food challenge and protect that bush. We also have another note here that states when a challenge occurs between two male Eotriceratops, the two must leave any group they're in until the challenge concludes. And that's actually a recent addition to the profile because of the new Stampede buff, which makes it a little bit difficult for bullfights to be fair if the male who already has the harem or the crash is benefiting from the females in his herd, right? So it's a little adjustment to the profile that's made as of recent to kind of accommodate for that so that things aren't, completely disproportionate and unfair to other actors. So that is the beginning of the Eotrike profile, covering the tags, group limits, and whatnot. Are we all feeling comfortable about that, or are there questions?
I am.
Perfect. Awesome. My tiny nugget.
It's adorable.
It's very squishable at this point. I'm being very careful not to run. That would suck. Mom of the year. Alrighty. So if we're feeling comfortable with that, I can head into our early life section, which would be in relation to little Natty here. Alrighty. So early life. Due to how massive Eotriceratops are, when they hatch, they will be weak and mostly just sleep. But as they grow, they gain a burst of energy and sprint around for short periods of time before falling asleep again. So fresh, here she goes. So fresh out of the waystone, if you ever get nested as an Eotrike, take a few minutes to kind of just rest there for a moment and, try and simulate that hatching experience, because obviously we don't have actual nesting yet. So unfortunately, we do have to make do with the waystone, but you can still roleplay out these aspects and just, be a little sleepy baby for a few moments before getting up and moving with the herd.
Either coordinate really well with your herd to let the babies have a minute to rest there, Or
Mhm.
just kind of get up for a brief moment and then go rest somewhere. So
Pretty
we don't
much,
have
yeah.
a million babies falling through the
Yes,
freaking
absolutely
ground.
get up and move off the actual spawn point, because that's how you end up with waystone issues. But as you're waiting for your other siblings, take a few moments to rest, or if your parents are trying to get up and on the move too soon, take those few extra minutes to sleep and just be like, "No, mom, 5 more minutes. I just hatched." Other than that, once these babies get up and on the move, they basically get zoomies, and they are going to run around like crazy and have all the energy, and then they're going to pass out again. Young males will pretend to bullfight with other male offspring and might even try with their father, who will be the first recipient when they are small. But when bigger, he will get more grumpy and walk off or even shove them away, risking trampling.
So would shoving
Spicy
kind
baby.
of just be like briefly holding shift for a second?
You could absolutely do that. You could also, use your shake emote and kind of precise movement into them as well. Just, generally like pushing them, using your body in any regard, whether that is actually running into them and maybe doing a little bit of trample, or using your emotes. While very energetic, the female offspring will usually prefer to follow around their mother and copy her actions instead. Their early years are some of the most vulnerable years, making it very hard for them to to survive when abandoned. So generally, they want to stick close to their to their mother, to their little crash, because they're very small, very squishy, and they are depending on their mother for safety. If they are abandoned, or if it's an orphan, then they're going to unfortunately see a lot more casualties.
Yeah, baby life is
Even if
difficult.
exactly, yeah. Even if they are this vulnerable, they are seen following herds around, trying to socialize and play. But due to how clumsy they are, most herbivores will keep their distance, not to get the whole weight of a ceratopsian over them. So these little orphan babies might attempt to socialize with other herds out of desperation, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have a mom, they're sad and all by themselves, so they'll maybe linger behind some other herbivores, but of course those herbivores are going to be wary because these are fat babies. So that little Campto herd that this Eotrike has been following around might no longer appreciate them once they start hitting adolescent, right?
Yeah.
Alrighty, so how are we feeling about early life? Oh, looks like we have a question. Ooh, that's an excellent question. So, this stone slab that my Eo sits on is her usual resting or sleeping spot. Would she three call others away off her spot if it's taken, or would the Eo just shrug and find another spot? So, that's an excellent question. If you want a particular basking spot for any dinosaur, you may attempt to push. Oh, sorry. You may attempt to push other creatures off of, the things that you want. That's a general rule for all species, because you're going to be using your body language to communicate to your herd members or your pack members, right? Eotrike females will form very close bonds with Eo females that they are familiar with. So for Eo specifically, I think for a female that you are not comfortable with yet, haven't known for a very long time, I think that's a really good way to kind of, show that you're still not familiar with them by pushing them around a little bit and, just making sure that they know that's your spot. You wouldn't necessarily fight over food because, we kind of share the bounty of the territory equally, but little resting spots like that that are, your favorite spot to sit is perfect to make sure that people are aware that it is yours. For female eos that you've traveled with for a longer time and are more comfortable with or have a bond with, you might be a little bit more lenient, and instead of using a 3 call, maybe you'll use a shake emote, right? So you give them a little push with your head or a little shove with your side to communicate rather than being outright aggressive. Generally, I would recommend trying to use less aggressive body language in general, just because you shouldn't necessarily be fighting the other females in the crash. So if you're using a 3 call, that might invite another actor to engage in a fight with you, which shouldn't be happening. So you can use the 3 call as a way to communicate, but you don't want to like actually be looking for challenges. Okay. How are we feeling about early life?
I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Perfect. Oh, the fog. Can't see.
Been a foggy day today.
It has. I was playing my Thal earlier and started getting lost. Couldn't see where I was going. Alrighty, so I'll move into a general behavior if we're feeling comfortable there. So, for our general behavior, the massive, slow-moving Eotriceratops stubbornly maintain their partners and their space. The solitary males stake a claim of territory in open plains, so like savanna, marking trees and rocks by rubbing their horns against them to leave olfactory and visual evidence of their turf. So olfactory meaning, the scent, right? So I personally like to think that eos have some sort of scent gland in their head, so when they smack their head on stuff, they're actually like marking it that way as well. Females, on the other hand, prefer the nomadic life when no male is present, traveling alone or in female herds searching for food and fresh water. Unlike the irritable males, females bond by socializing, eating, and even resting close together. So generally very protective of our personal space. Again, that falls into that aloof tag, right? We don't like other creatures getting up in our business. And of course, the males want to, stake out the best possible territory that they can and make sure that other creatures know that they live there. So being active in your territory, and marking the trees with your horns and your scent, and maybe broadcasting as you're patrolling, making your presence known, is excellent for a male. As well, let's see. So the females, they're generally very nomadic. So unless actively looking to nest, they will typically, go about their own business and steer clear of the males and just constantly wander in search of food and water. And of course, they are more friendly with each other as well, and they will form those bonds, as it says. All right, so that is our general behavior. How do we feel about that?
Yeah, like one biggest question that I had was about just when people continuously stay in the territory while I'm trying to escort them.
Yeah, so it's tricky stuff. If you are continuously trying to threaten something out of your territory and it refuses to leave, you may attack it. If it's ignoring your threat displays and your threat calls, you can attack it. There's actually a really excellent chart that Moss made. I believe it is pinned in Pot General chat. That actually is a flow chart that talks about how to react in certain situations. It's called "Can I Kick This Thing's Butt?" Herbivore Edition. And it basically talks about how to react in terms of something ignoring your threat displays. So the first thing it asks, are you territorial? Yes. Is it in my territory? Yes. 3 call it. Did it leave? No. Attack it. So it follows that sort of a flow chart and can help you out there. And, for something that is, maybe smaller or faster than an Eotrike, and the actor in that moment is using the game mechanics to kind of avoid you while still maintaining their presence in your territory despite the 3 calls, then in that situation, that's going to be somewhere where you are going to want to reach out to that actor. and, kind of explain, like, I am attempting to push you out of my territory. You are being actively threatened. It is unrealistic for you to remain in the area if you're not willing to fight me. Right? Because they're being threatened. So if they're, making an active effort to scoot around you and not engage with your threats, but still lingering in the area, that's considered unrealistic, okay?
Okay.
Seraph has a question here as well. If playing as a female and you feel a male is bad at keeping their territory clean of carnivores, they may be found less attractive. Is that all right to do? As my EO judges them as a poor mating choice, as it would threaten your babies. Absolutely. If a male cannot keep the territory safe and keep predators out, that's not somewhere you're going to want to raise offspring, right? And the reason you're, lingering in his territory is to see if you actually feel that he's going to be a capable mate. And if he can't keep the territory safe, he's not worth your time. I have left males who can't keep territory, and I've also left males who pick bad territories. So if there's no food or no water and it can't maintain us, I will abandon that male. Because that's not somewhere I want to raise babies. No, that's totally fine. Highly recommended, actually. Has the Ellis seal of approval. Alrighty, so I can actually move into social behavior there if you guys are feeling comfy about the general everyday behavior of the EO.
Yeah.
Perfect. For our social behavior, this mostly covers females because males don't really like each other. But a harem of females, so anywhere from 1 to 3, will migrate together or individually while the male protects his domain. So you kind of mentioned this in your stream earlier when I poked in, as well as this is a big pet peeve of mine. When I play my male, is the females following me as I do my patrol. Go do your own thing, right? They're not obligated to follow the male every minute of the day. They will roam his territory either together, or individually, like it says. So me and Sereth have been kind of wandering about together, but maybe they want to get up at some point and kind of go do their own thing. That's totally fine as well. But we don't need to be following the male completely for every available minute of the day, right? We can let him go do his patrols on his own. That's his job. That's not ours. We're meant to relax and just take it easy. The females are seen making strong bonds with other females. This usually will happen between sisters or mothers and daughters, but it is sometimes seen in 2 females with no relation. So obviously sisters grow up together, and mothers and daughters, have that time to bond as well while the offspring are raised. So those bonds are going to be really, really strong. This female of mine actually does have a sister. We were nested together a few months back, and it is a friend I regularly play with. So our EOs are like besties.
Aw,
Whereas
hey.
stranger females that I don't know, like Sereth, it's going to take me a bit longer to make those bonds because, they're a complete stranger to me. I don't have that history with them. But it's not to say that it's impossible. Like, if me and Sereth spend enough time together today or even over repeated encounters in the future, we can become just as close. These strongly bonded females can be seen resting extremely close together with their backs pressed against each other to form some kind of protection. So basically, their love language is touch. So they will just kind of stick close together and linger with each other, making contact with their sides or their backs. Oh dear. Goodbye, Natty. You're gonna...
Oh no.
Tabbed out reading. Natty, try to stick to one side of me. Rip.
No. Well, now that I have died,
I said it
would
was
it
probably gonna
be
happen.
would it be okay for someone to stream for me?
I will unfortunately crash if I stream, but I believe Merasti is actually streaming on Twitch, so you could actually watch that.
Okay, I'm on it.
Okay. The sadness of not having two monitors, and when I tab out to read the profile, and then my baby dies. Oh well, can always
Don't
make
tell
another
me that's the
baby.
same stinking aloe.
Sorry, Natty. My apologies.
Really, really have to fight the instinct to just run over and help the baby.
Unfortunately, it's not your job.
Oh,
Now, that being said, if the mother is not around, and like maybe she's logged or is on the other side of the territory and has abandoned her baby for whatever reason, a male can step in to defend the female's offspring, because you're going to be following your belligerent tag in that moment, right? So you can defend one other member of the herd in a pair. So the male can step in to protect an offspring if it's unattended, but if it's attended by its mother, it's not your business. Does that make sense?
yes.
Perfect. All right. So let me find out where I was. We just covered the bonds of females and how these bonds are built, as well as how they behave when they are bonded. Males, on the other hand, will never form strong bonds with others of their species, preferring the more solitary life. But even then, on occasion, he will walk over to his females and socialize by eating with them, resting beside them, or just grunting at them, as he also wants his females to trust him. So maybe, offering a 2-call as you wander about on your patrol, or, coming over to eat with us when we're at a bush, things like that. You just want to still build some sort of familiarity with us so that we feel as though we can trust you. All right.
Now, I would want to stick relatively close to the area to then go get that stinking aloe out of here again, right? After the body's
Yeah, so
gone?
while he has that body, you can't do anything, but once the body is gone, you can initiate a territory challenge and try to push him out. I did not initiate a challenge against him. I reacted to a hunt, so we are not currently on a challenge timer with him. If he had approached and I 3-called him first before his hunt could initiate, and then the body dropped, that would have been the challenge. So you wouldn't have been able to actually challenge him in that regard, because we would have been on a challenge timer. But it was a hunt, so it's okay. My poor little baby, my poor little nugget. That's so sad.
Right.
Sarah has a question here. If 3 females sit close with a baby in between and a hunt is initiated, being belligerent, we don't defend each other, but how do we divide if attacked while sitting close, as it may be unclear who the target is? Well, all sitting close by. Excellent question. So I'll actually skip ahead of the aggression section and cover predator reaction, as that actually relates to this question here. So due to their large size and territorial nature, Eotriceratops will almost always stand their ground against a carnivore threat. They will shake their frills and bellow loudly at predators, primarily relying on intimidation to prevent risk. So this is before a hunt is initiated, right? But they're exhibiting that stalking behavior. So you're, trying to stand your ground and threaten them and intimidate them away from the area. If this fails, they will attempt to impale their adversary with their horns or knock them off balance with their sheer size. However, mature Eotriceratops would rather stay out of combat that isn't over food or mates and will not help defend a herd mate. So, in a situation where 3 females are close together and a hunt is initiated, you're going to want to make an active effort in that moment to separate from the others, and move about in a way that, like, you don't know who the target is yet, right? But you want to make space between yourselves. So it says here, when met with carnivores, Eotriceratops will begin to slowly back up and move apart, making space to maneuver their bulk safely. So once you are, engaged in a threat with a carnivore, if you're all sitting close together like that, take a moment to, back up, move to the side, create that space, because you cannot feasibly defend yourself if you are cramped up in a group, right? So you want to give yourself your space to be able to maneuver appropriately. And by doing that, you're also going to make it clear who the target is, because you are going to be spaced out. And then if the aloe per se is then very clearly going after a baby, the females who are not the mother of said calf can leave line of sight. So when you're attacked, try and make some space between yourselves, because A, you can't defend yourself if you're all cramped up, and also you don't want to impale your herd mates by any means. So move apart, separate. Once the target is clear, move on.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Sarah? Perfect. Oh, a lambio. There's a creature. You never see those guys anymore. A rare sight.
I freaking had to run for my life from Big Nose.
Oh, spooky.
Lambtail hurts though.
It does. It was
Playing
nerfed
one
in the last
yesterday.
update, but it's still pretty painful because it is their main attack, right? So it's gonna pack
They
a
don't
punch.
have another attack at the moment.
Yeah,
Just their tail and their call.
just their tail. So they need to be able to use it.
But
Oh, 2% just for me. Delicious.
I learned you can almost take out a Picno with it.
Lambio is
That'll
tough,
chase
and people
you.
don't give it credit for how tough it is.
Yeah. And when you
Alrighty,
use
so
I learned,
Go ahead.
of course, you can't heal while you're in combat anymore. It's the combat timer. But lambs, using their call, still will heal.
Yes, so they will still heal, but the trick that they've done as of the last update, I have a question that I was just asked. They can't use their healing call unless they're in a group. So previously, like, lone lambios could just heal indefinitely because they'd keep using their healing call, and they would just basically like out heal their competitors despite the combat timer. But now it's a group call, so you have to be in a herd to use that. So that actually is a significant nerf for Lambio, and definitely encourages people to herd more rather than just play solo. So there is that, which is nice. Oh. Well, that's interesting. Everyone wants a piece of Natty, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they're fighting over or not, but that's what I'm choosing to believe. Alrighty. Well, I will cover the aggression section as well before we loop back to our courting and reproduction. So, the aggression section is going to cover how you interact with other herbivores, and how, you go about pushing things out of your territory, okay? So, a harem, so the females, will guard the bounty of a bull's territory carefully. If another female pushes the size of the group too high, the cows will force the outsider away, resorting to physical means if necessary. So this was actually the question that you brought up while I was lurking in your stream. So, can females push out other females if the group is full? Yes, they can. It's a bit of a tricky one because technically females are nomadic, and by issuing a territory challenge to this other female, they technically are breaking their tag. So it's a bit, you know? We are currently trying to get staff to allow female EOs to have the territorial tag when the harem is full. So they will have the nomadic tag generally, and then territorial in a full crash. Just because technically by, pushing out the other females, you're exhibiting territorial behavior, which is a little bit iffy. But the answer from the profile creator themselves states that, I have it here. So one of the previous acting coaches asked to the profile creator, how does the portion of the EO profile where females drive out excess females from a male's territory work within the rules? They're nomadic and aren't allowed to claim territory. Only one is allowed to guard a bush, and the adults can't guard each other. So is it actually okay for 3 females to gang up and push out a lone female? Or should it be one female pushing out the one not in the herd? And the response from the profile creator says that since it is in the profile itself, they are allowed to push a female out. Plus, they could always make it over personal space. So the challenge would be over personal space if you are really unsure. But yes, all females can push out a lone female if there is no room for her in the herd. Of course, it shouldn't be that they will chase the female down just to push her out. More like a slow push, and if the lone female starts leaving, all is good. If she stays, they might get a little bit more angry. So you're not going to be, chasing her down necessarily, but you can exhibit aggressive behavior in an attempt to intimidate her and push her out, okay? It is a bit of a tricky one, like I said, because technically they don't have the territorial tag, and it is exhibiting territorial behavior, but it is written in the profile itself. So hopefully, staff can make it a bit more clear by maybe making another profile note for our port EOs, stating that oh dear.
It's 2 separate allos that popped up in here. While there's 1 allo and a Rex that were in a fight. So I'm trying to push these other 2 out that don't belong here. They're saying that because they're not... No, it's big carnivores, not large carnivores. Right?
You are allowed to push out large and huge carnivores.
Okay,
or
so
anything that you deem to be a threat.
Allos are large. So would I be worried about these 2 allos?
Yes, you would be attempting to push them out of your territory. I didn't actually see what exactly occurred, but I assume you were attempting to, issue a territory challenge and push them out, correct?
Yeah. Okay, they said that they checked the profile and they're large. Dad had a mix-up. Ah!
I do that, don't worry. Because clicks while you're trying to type.
Okay. Alright, and Rex has a body over there, so I will just... These guys are moving.
Yeah, so they just had a little mix-up with the sizes.
Yeah, and it happens.
Okay. No worries. I was afraid that they were gonna give you a hard time, and I was like, oh, no.
Well, it is cool
But yes,
too.
no, it does happen.
It's learning for me, and I can, get confirmation and whatnot just as it happens.
Technically, when I'm, teaching a one-on-one, I can't really intervene in terms of rule breaks or anything like that. But because I'm not staff or anything like that, but I can offer guidance, and tell you how to, engage in a certain situation based on your profile. So, but yes, I was talking about the females.
Yes.
So, it's a bit of a tricky one because, by pushing out these females, they are going to be exhibiting territorial behavior. So acting coaches are trying to push the staff and the profile writers to kind of add another little note clarifying this. But from the profile creator themselves, it is written in your profile, so you may attempt to push and intimidate these other females out of the territory.
I think another, just on the thing about some of the profiles, technically, how it is that break. I think the Amarga profile would be one to address because, following profiles as a sneaky male, or following rules as a sneaky male, breaks you being a sneaky male and can out you as a sneaky male in certain situations, since you can't behave as the female that you're trying to pass as.
Yeah, so in that regard, you're talking about defense rules, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So with polygamous rules, a polygamous male may protect all eligible females in any scenario. So if you are a sneaky male, technically, because you are male, you can go defend a female regardless of body length, right? Just don't follow that. Leave her to die, and you won't out yourself as a sneaky male, right? So yes, you are meant to follow the rules of your assigned gender based on your character selection screen. And even if you appear female and appear to be a sneaky male, appear female and are acting as a sneaky male, you are male and you have to follow male rules. The only issue where gender comes into play with the Amarga profile for defense rules would be that polygamous tag. So as a sneaky male, you would just not take the time to defend these females. Because that would out you as a sneaky male. And that's it. That's simply all you can do. You're not breaking profile, nor are you breaking rules. You're just simply deciding not to act on a situation.
Yeah, you can't protect your babies.
You can't protect your baby? Is that what you said? Sorry?
Yeah.
So you can protect your baby if it's within a body length. Yeah, and that's basically it. As a female Amarga, who actually is female and is nesting, you can defend your offspring regardless of body length. But, generally, yes, you can defend your adoptees regardless of body length technically as well. I don't really care for my adoptees like that. If my adoptee gets hunted, I'll try, maybe, but I also won't go out of my way to defend them because they're not my blood. They're not actually my genetics that I'm trying to pass on. So with a male Amarga who is a sneaky male who has an adoptee, not protecting your adoptee regardless of body length, because you're technically breaking your gender rule, right? You're not allowed to rush across a field to go defend your adoptee as a sneaky male. You're technically fine because it's an adoptee. You're not going to be expected to die for an adoptee anyway. Does that make sense? I will leave adoptees to die on multiple occasions, especially if I can't do anything for them. But yes, like we were talking about, the profile updates are coming, so they might be addressing that. They might be adding a profile note, perhaps, that allows sneaky males to defend their adoptees. But as of right now, you just have to follow the rules as they're written. Alrighty, so we'll go back to the aggression section here. States that when an outside bull approaches a male with an established harem, so here we're getting into our bullfights, they perform ritualistic combat to control the territory. consisting of 2 bulls broadcasting and slowly approaching one another. The bulls will form a circle and slowly move around it while broadcasting, throwing their heads around and angrily bellowing. If this intimidation display does not force the opposition to back down, they will run in and strike each other with their horns, then run out and form the circle again. They will repeat the intimidation display again before going in for another hit, repeating the cycle until one bull backs down. So, for the bullfights, intimidation. You want to intimidate that other bull into backing down and scaring him off. Make yourself look bigger, stronger, angrier, and then maybe he'll think, okay, this isn't worth it, right? And he'll back down. If that intimidation display does fail, you're going to start doing that circling, and you're going to be trying to, again, still intimidate. You're also going to try and impress the ladies, okay? You want to throw a couple extra moves into your intimidation to hopefully, impress those ladies and make sure that they know that you're the healthier option in this situation, okay? Once you are both ready, you'll line up face to face. You can use a mock hit in that moment to signal to the other actor that you are ready to engage. And once you are both ready, you will rush forward and hit each other with your horns. So in that regard, you are using your headbutt attack. You are not using your charge attack. Using your charge attack breaks profile. So you run forward, headbutt, and then resume your circling and resuming that display.
What is with the aloes today?
I'm just catching up on chat here. Sarth, we're going to try and keep it as EO central focused and EO central as we can. But you can always ask questions and acting questions if you need a response from an acting coach. That's totally fine.
We're just going back in. Why?
So as soon as you initiate a territory challenge and they ignore it and don't leave, you can attack them.
Yeah, just too far away. I'm gonna waste all my steam.
Yeah, at this point, I would probably send them another whisper and just be like, hey, I am trying to escort you out of the territory. Please leave. It is an unfortunate issue with actors knowing that they're faster and stronger, or not stronger, faster and more nimble than an EO or something. They might, basically skirt around the edges, as we're saying.
They're saying that I shouldn't be following them around. They're not invading my space or...
They are in your territory and you are attempting to escort them out of the area as a territorial dinosaur.
Giant. Yeah, they're trying to say that it's only meaning Rexes, but...
No, it's
Hey!
large and huge.
Rex just over here sneaking by.
It's large and huge because the profile was not updated after the huge class was introduced. It's large and above. It's always been large and above. But I would suggest just, asking them to DM you maybe about the issue, because unfortunately we can't really intervene with it too much in terms of while we're in a one-on-one.
Yeah.
and if they are confused by anything in that regard, they can also always ask in assistance or acting questions. Like that is what those channels are there for. So. For something of that regard, Sarath, if you feel that way, you are welcome to put in a suggestion.
Shit.
Are you okay for me to continue, or did you still need a few moments?
Should be good.
Okay. So, just finished discussing the bullfighting there. Are you feeling comfortable in regards to that? And how, like, the actual ritualistic combat works? Perfect. Okay. So, the next section covers the females' reactions to the bullfights themselves. So, a female Eotriceratops will not want to be with males who take their fights to the brink of death. Sometimes they may even choose the loser of a fight if the winner fails to properly fight. As for the females, it's all about having a strong and trustworthy male. So if he pushes himself to death scars, he is reckless, he is stupid. We do not want that man defending our territory and providing a safe place for our offspring, because he's opening himself up to serious injury, infection, death. Not a very responsible male to have guarding your territory. Okay? Even though they are territorial, they will only push out big carnivores, so that is large and above. So large and huge, as we are previously discussing, as well as other Eotriceratops out of their territory, as long as the creature residing in said territory respects the giant ceratopsian space and does not eat all the food around it. So technically, you are also able to push out other creatures if they begin to disrespect you, your space, and your resources. So even if they are not large or huge, but they are becoming a nuisance, they may be pushed out as well.
So that phrase right there, as long as the creatures, and then following after that, that's what the aloes are saying. I shouldn't be pushing them out because they're not invading my space or taking resources.
But they are big carnivores. So the first section is referring to them. You push out all big carnivores regardless of what they're doing. You don't want them there.
Okay. I feel like the last part of that phrase refers more to herbivores.
Yeah, so
like,
that's going to be
a carnivore
something
isn't going to be taking your resources.
using your resources. Exactly. So that's going to be things like maybe a nomadic herd of Albertas wander through, right? So they come in and start eating all your food. You're going to want to push them out, even though they're not a large carnivore, right? They're using all your food. Or maybe it's some little Latins and they're trying to socialize with your EO and like do their little mimicking games. Then in that point, they're disrespecting your space because they're getting into your personal business. So you can try and push them out there as well.
Okay.
So things that use your resources or generally annoy you can be pushed out if they prove to be causing an issue in that regard. Otherwise, large and huge carnivores and other male EOs have to go. With Amarga being medium-sized, yes. If they start eating all that food, they gotta go. Now, Also consider, though, that when you do challenge, again, let's use Amarga as an example. If you challenge a herd of Amargas in an attempt to push them out of your territory, technically you're challenging the entire herd. So if there's 20 Amargas, you might have to fight 20 Amargas.
Jesus.
So that's something to keep in
Okay.
mind. But
Yeah,
that's
that's
one of the
fair.
issues where you are going to want to be relying on the other actor to be following their profile appropriately, because Amargas should not be resorting to physical means over food.
Yeah.
That's directly stated in their profile, that they don't. They use an intimidation display, and if it fails, they will give up and move on because they're nomadic. Same with
Yeah.
Iggies. Iggies are very irritable and very angry and are not afraid to intimidate, but they're also not going to be willing to fight over food,
Yeah,
right?
it's
These nomadic herbivores. Oh, go ahead.
It's in their profile tags as well
Mm-hmm.
that they wouldn't want to.
No, absolutely
puts
not.
them at
So
a higher chance of dying.
exactly. So with you challenging a herd of 20 Amargas, technically, yes, you're challenging the entire herd. So technically, the entire herd could fight you. But also, it's not very in profile for Amargas to actually fight you. So you are relying in that moment for the Amargas to actually be following their profile and react appropriately to your threats.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So that covers our aggression. Did you have any other questions about that?
Oh, that's right. Sabros is back, and wondering what the answer was for the 3 females and the 1 female that's already with. We will expand upon that role briefly.
With the females being willing to push out other females from the territory, I was saying earlier that it's a bit of a tricky situation because technically EO females are nomadic, and by pushing out other female EOs, you're technically exhibiting territorial behavior, so you're breaking your tag, right? And tags come before the written profile in terms of superiority. So you are meant to follow your nomadic tag and not exhibit territorial behavior. But from the profile creator themselves, they say that yes, these female EOs can work together to push out other females because it's in their written profile body. So you're following your profile, but you're not following your tag. Technically, your tag comes first, but we are hoping that with the profile updates that the staff will either adjust this section of the profile or perhaps add another note or change the tags and allow females to be territorial when in a full crash, and so that they may actually exhibit this behavior. Because technically, yes, by following your profile as it's written, you can push out other females. But it's also, it's just, it's one of those things where there's multiple things interacting with each other and it can get really confusing. So from the profile creator, yes, you may push out other females, but sorry, the aloes?
Yeah.
Yes, if you wish to tell them. But yeah, so from the profile creator in that regard, female EOs are supposed to push out other females. It just gets a bit tricky when it interacts with the tags, so we're just kind of hoping for staff to kind of address this and make an extra note in the EO profile or do some shifting of information. So it's a bit of a gray area right now, sadly.
Gotcha.
Alrighty, but if we are feeling okay about aggression, I will head into courting and reproduction.
Yep.
So, when a female Eotrike is ready to find a male, they travel with their herd and roam, seeking the scent and sounds of a male. So again, this is why those males are going to be patrolling their territory and marking the area, as well as broadcasting to make their presence known, because this is what the female is looking for. Okay, that's how you attract the ladies. When the females find the male, they will softly grunt to catch his attention, and he lowers his head to display his crest and calls in response. If the male succeeds in courting females, he will spend a few days showing her his expansive territory. So what we did earlier, when our eos were first introduced, and I kind of did a little soft chat call towards you, and you shook your crest at me, and I was like, ooh, pretty man. That was perfect.
Yay!
And then from that point on, you'll kind of show off your territory to the females. So you can give them a little bit of a tour, show them where the bushes are, where the water is, things like that.
Yes.
And then that kind of gives them an idea of the area in which they are allowed to roam. I've joined male EOs previously, and as soon as they, add me to the group, they just sit down and don't do anything. And so
No.
because they haven't given me a tour, I don't know what's his territory and what isn't. So if I'm going to that bush over there to the east, maybe I'm not in his territory anymore, right? So that's a bit tricky, right? So giving the tour and clearly defining your territory borders to the female is expected. So not doing that is very unattractive. When the females are ready to nest, they will approach the male and start broadcasting right beside him while softly nudging his flank. The bull will lower his head to show off his frill, slowly walking around and shaking his crest. So when the females are basically, because you show up in this male's territory and you are basically scoping out to see how he performs in that moment and as a male. You want to see how well he protects his territory, what exactly his territory includes, and you're judging to see if this is somewhere you actually want to raise your offspring. So once you are satisfied with that, the females will approach the male and broadcast while standing beside him to indicate that they want to nest. The bull, in response, will show off his frill and walk around while shaking his crest to just be like, okay, perfect. Now's my chance to really show off and show that my colors are super bright. I'm super attractive. I'm going to produce these strong offspring, right? The females will then approach and lay beside him to indicate their readiness to nest. They will travel to a new area together for the eggs to hatch before returning to the male's territory, where he will be more fiercely protected from intruders. So in that moment, if you have offspring, right, you are going to tolerate medium carnivores and small carnivores less. If you have active offspring, your tolerance for intruders drops, and you may attempt to push out even more things, because what might not be a threat to you is a threat to your baby, right? And you want to ensure that your offspring survive and can pass on your genetics. Females will continue to travel around the territory, and the offspring will travel in the middle of the traveling harem. So as the females wander about the area, if they are traveling in a group, the offspring kind of stick to the center of the females' little group so that they are in the safest place possible, surrounded by 3 giant ladies. And that's the Eotrike profile. How are we feeling?
Pretty good.
Feeling enlightened? Like our brain is swelling with information?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I will call it an end here.
Oh.
Thank you for letting me shadow. And
No
letting me
problem.
die.
And letting you die, yeah. Sad, sorry.
You died. Oh no.
And you were really tiny and squishy. You were probably going to die anyway. Even if I wasn't reading at the moment it attacked. Oh well.
Okay.
'Tis the woe of a baby EO. You're delicious. Scrumptious.
Guess I will just